But I haven't been able to be on Sunday calls. I have that class from 9 to 11 Sunday mornings, so it's
Okay.
been kind of tight. But I think the session is over with the second week in July. I'll be on after the second after the 10th. Yeah,
Okay. That's
and I'll
good.
be
Now, which class is this? Is this one you're
I'm doing
teaching?
no the cellular. I'm doing the cellular. This I've been doing it for almost 2 years. They just changed the schedule. I do the
Okay.
cellular health class
Okay.
every so they do it every Sunday. For 2 hours, man. I tell you, if they did it any other day, man, I'd be ready to quit. But it's so
Hmm.
heavy. But yeah, I do that with the American School of Symptometry out of Chicago, and
Okay.
they have that class, man. But I'm just about finished for this semester, you know. And
Excellent.
we'll finish up. I think it's July the what second week. Second, yeah, it'll be July the second week in July. I'll be done, so I'll be able to get back on Sundays. And I've been keeping
Good.
up with everything. Now I've been reading. Now I'm not out of
Good.
it. you
Very
know,
good.
yeah.
Very good.
I just haven't had that opportunity to get back on live. And we'll be talking this July. But yeah,
Okay.
it's been good. As we still going through this tornado thing back here in St. Louis that just destroyed the African American community, bro.
Hmm.
It was unbelievable. I'd never seen anything like this, specifically in our community. You know, it just hit us right smack dab in the middle, 22-mile radius. I mean, just and like if nobody was existing but us. What it felt like.
Wow.
3,000 homes and 2,000 commercial buildings. Just took the roof off everything. It lasted
Had
12,
had
12
there had there ever been a storm like that in those communities before?
59, last one,
Okay. Okay.
1959. And I remember
Okay.
that one. I was a little kid, I remember that one. It was devastating. But for this particular part of the town, which is the north side, which is the region, they decided to do eminent domain on, they decided they're doing regentrification on. And just so happened, a lot took care of it for 'em. I mean, brother, I've never seen anything like this in my life. And it
Hmm.
just specifically hit us.
Were
Specifically.
most were most of the people insured?
Now, most of them weren't. These were the older homes that in St. Louis, 1920, 1930 homes. Parents died, living with the children, type of thing. Very few people bought homes in the north side, except for rental property. People were buying
Okay.
property to rent out, but for the most part, most of those people who own homes, they probably was gone or old or whatever it may be. But uh, I would say 80% of the people had no insurance.
Huh. Okay. So which means their houses, they own those homes then.
Yeah, yeah, they own them. Or they got a second mortgage on them or something like that.
Well,
But
if you get yeah, typically though, if you get a second mortgage, I mean, unless the person holding
yeah,
the mortgage just doesn't care,
that's
they
true.
make you get insurance or they carry insurance on the
Absolutely.
property.
And that's what happened with us. We still haven't got that economic education down pack yet, Brother Edward. And I guess we don't get it yet. That's a lot of education that has to take place for us in our communities, man, to make this transition. I've been seeing it all my life in the banking and the corporate entity. And we just are not there, and we just have to find a way to continue to pushing forward to educate our people about the importance of planning, information on economics and what it really is. And even our youngsters who are coming out with these degrees, a lot of them they don't have a clue, man. Wills trust, planning, emergency plans, and cash spending plans, 50, 30, 20 plan. We just think it's going to be okay. you know, I'll do that next month. I do that next year, type of thing. But it's
Hmm.
devastating. The people, I still do my little classes here, workforce development. 4 classes every 10 weeks. I do 3 weeks out of that. Man, it's just the parents, the young people, our people who supposed to have some semblance of education, bro. It's sad. But we can go out to eat all day long now. We can eat dinner. We got them 14 holidays all year long that we participate in.
Yeah.
We big on this. I did a breakdown on how we spend our money, and I did all the holidays. I did the graduations, the birthdays, the wedding anniversaries, the funerals, the entertainment, vacation. And you know why we don't have any money, man. We just it's just nonstop. Somebody else influencing us on what we do and how we do it, you know. So
Hmm.
looking at that, man, it didn't dawn on me that we had 14 actual holidays that we seriously participate in, you know. And one of them was Christmas, where the average African American, we as African American, we keep a company open for 4 months out the year. We if they don't sell nothing else, just on Christmas. That's how much money they make off us on Christmas time. You know, just unbelievable statistics. Unbelievable statistics, bro. You know, so we got one coming now. 4th of July. Phew. But yeah, it's just it's a tough one, man. It really is a tough one. And with
So what are they going to do there? I mean, obviously the federal government is not going to help much. I mean, I saw where one of your senators is asking, for federal assistance and stuff
yeah,
like
Holly.
that. That doesn't,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's Holly. Yeah, what happened? The last 2 weekends here in St. Louis, Fridays and Saturdays, FEMA supposedly had come in town, and so they
Okay.
had it down at the big stadium. And those people, they were given the qualifications. Those who were homeowners, those who had insurance, they had that. So I don't know. This past weekend was the last one, but the American Red Cross. You got Salvation Army, you Catholic
Hmm.
Church. They really have all the FEMA so-called federal money, but they don't tell anybody about when things happen to you that you can utilize those particular entities to at least sustain yourself and so forth and so on. But yeah, FEMA was just here, so I have a meeting with the mayor's office the 7th and 8th of next week with a FEMA team who's qualified to do FEMA here in St. Louis. That I was a part of their board. So we'll go in and find out how that transpired, what happened, what's available to whom and to whom. I just don't know. I know most of those people were renters. Most of the people,
Mm,
they were. I would say 65% of the people in those homes, the 3,000 homes that was destroyed, were renters.
okay.
And so the homeowners, who had insurance, and those Europeans who did have insurance, they're getting the insurance is going to take care of what they do. But man, it's just the total the 1.4 billion so far that they've calculated. So far, we just don't know the true figures and who's who and what's what. The demographics have not been done, so we really don't know. But I have a lot of people I know. I mean, a lot of them, man. Their house was just trees on the roofs, off side of the house gone. It's just unbelievable, man. I had 3 people that I knew who died in the tornado, and so forth and so on. But everything is just destroyed, bro. I just never
Hmm,
seen anything like it, you know. But it was very
interesting.
unique, very unusual, So, but throughout the country though, we find our communities. If it's not tornadoes, if it's not hurricanes, it's just economically disaster. Period. We just are not getting this in our heads on what we're going to have to do to sustain ourselves, bro. It's just amazing. It really is amazing. And
Or
most of
or just to prepare yourself for things that you have no control over. I mean, that's
right,
something nobody has control over. Path of tornadoes.
true.
I mean, obviously, if you're a renter, you probably need to have some rental insurance over, whatever the limit is,
Yeah, just
for
property.
goods, yeah,
Hmm.
that you may have lost, maybe 15,000, maybe 20,000, whatever the
Hmm.
case may be.
Right.
And as a renter, there's not a heck of a lot more than you can do.
That's true.
You're not the homeowner. You can only say, my furniture, my clothes, my computers, whatever, televisions, whatever I may have lost,
Hmm.
that type of thing. That's all you can do in those
Yeah,
situations.
make sure you have that clause in there in case of Mother Nature or natural disaster, because some of those insurance companies don't cover rental. If you know natural disasters, some of them don't call. So, make sure you
Hmm.
read that policy well, because that fine print.
Yeah.
My friend in the apartment building, man, he said, "Oh, they didn't cover that." I said, "What?" And I didn't believe it, but in the insurance place says you don't cover natural disasters, theft,
Interesting.
fire, a couple other things was in there, but natural disasters wasn't there.
Interesting.
Floods wasn't there. Natural disasters, that was basically the same thing, but it didn't cover that coverage for them as a renter.
So it would cover fire, but not wind and rain.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, that fine
Yeah.
print. Insurance company, they in the business to make money. I
Of
bet you,
course they are.
I
Right.
bet, I'm betting that you don't. I'm betting that it does something. That big bet there. But if
Right.
you don't read that fine print and you let them pull a wool over your eyes, they will do the wool.
Yeah,
I mean,
most people don't read those contracts. I mean,
no,
those are long, confusing contracts.
yes,
Most people don't have the time to read that, and usually they're fairly inexpensive. I mean, renter's insurance does not cost a whole bunch of money.
no, it doesn't.
So,
I only pay 20. I pay $18 a month. I'm in an apartment, so to speak. So
hmm
that's all I pay. I just pay for in case somebody break in, theft,
right.
jewelry, or whatever, TVs and stuff. Other
Yep.
than that, they don't cover that now. But yeah,
That is
it's amazing, man. It really is. But it just makes us realize how much education has to be given to our community. But
right.
aggregate, how do you do this? You can't hardly get us as Muslims to come together and think in terms of how do we get this off the ground? What direction do we go in? And so this mental thing, it's more of I think the shock and the awe of consistency and constantly the stress, the strain, the uh, trauma that we all carry. All that stuff happens. It's got to the point we just don't move on anything, and that's what I'm seeing mostly, Edward. That you talk to them, but once you finish the conversation, that's it. And the consistency, the long-term thinking, uh, taking care of your family, those types of things. What little bit of that we do have left, unfortunately.
hmm
Like I look like my great grandmother and them. Man, I don't know how they learned all this stuff. I was like, wait a minute, y'all didn't go to school. They had all this stuff intact. You know, great grandparents and great grand. I mean, they knew something we didn't know, and whatever it was, but we need some of it today. That's for sure. I look at my grandma. They had their emergency fund. Grandma go in that breast man and pull that little sack of money out.
hmm
Hey, where you get all this money from? Well, don't you worry about it. You just make sure you say yo. That's okay. But something happened. Shh. Funerals, you ain't had to go nowhere. They had this thing on lockdown, as a community. But now, nobody really has any insurance. Nobody. So many cremations is the biggest thing here in this city. Anyway, all the deaths and stuff that we have, it's all about cremations, man.
hmm Well,
And
I
that's
mean, that's funny because I mean, I guess I'm old now, but I mean, my parents, little insurance thing was right by the door.
yeah,
When the man came by, everything was right there to grab it, give him
that's
his
it.
money, get
That's
him to check this off, check that off,
back
whatever.
in the day. Got your little book.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It
I
was all
remember
right. It
those
was
days.
all right there, man.
I remember those days.
So that seems like that's an easy thing to replicate. It would
Right.
seem like, and then
Mhm.
most people also have. But I'm assuming that people work. And
Mhm.
if you work, the cheapest life insurance you'll ever get in your life is group insurance.
That's it. That's it, my bro.
I mean, usually it's up to your salary or
There's
whatever 20.
usually two times your annual income, mostly at most of
Right,
it.
yeah, and that's usually at no cost. You can buy
Yeah,
extra if you want to.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
So it's amazing to me that either people don't work or they don't have a job that has benefits or
that's true.
they don't take advantage of their group insurance.
True.
And those
Anything?
are those are easy fixes for most people.
Yes, true. This is my daughter when her what is this guy 43 years old. He worked for the school district for 18 years, and they got a. I ain't gonna say they got a divorce, but they were separated at the time. And but when he died, he had that group insurance for the school district. She didn't even know anything about it. Her name was
hmm
still on there, even though they weren't together. And she got that $100,000, man. you know, and then
How
turn.
did his family feel about that?
They didn't know she was a
Okay.
beneficiary. She, she had she had two and a half two children by three children by him, and
Okay.
he had a little girlfriend on the side. But his mother and father and he only had one brother. You know, they didn't
Oh,
even
okay.
know she got it. You know, but shoot, she might as well didn't get it because she messed it up anyway. When they paid
Mm,
cash for a 2023 Mercedes Benz, and you know she got hit.
of course.
I mean,
Yeah.
I said, baby, I don't want no car. I said, baby, what you don't want is a car that you can't afford to drive. That's what
All right.
and she paid $54,000 for that car. And then she forgot you had to pay sales tax. You know, they'll let you buy the car, but you're gonna pay that state sales tax.
Right.
Boy, she got wiped out quick, and she had taken a trip and doing all. I said, baby, you got put something aside. Oh, Dad, I know what I'm doing. Dad, I said, okay. Broke it. She doing her extracurricular money now at Uber.
She's doing Uber in a Mercedes Benz.
Yeah, she is. She ain't got no choice. I mean, don't want to listen.
That's
Don't want to listen.
mm,
And didn't even know she had some money. Not only did she have the life insurance policy, you had all those union dues that you don't, what you pay into however many years he was paying union dues, you get that and you get that back. So if he was in the union for 13 years, whatever he paid into it, that goes to you. She didn't even know she had it. And then we come around and say, Dad, let me take you out to dinner. That's how these young people are, man. I mean, this is my oldest daughter, but I said, girl, you can come out and say, Dad, thanks for telling me about that. Let me take you out. And he goes, I ain't asked you for no money, but at least you could have been courteous enough to say thank you or take me out to dinner or something. She bent
right.
that money so quick, man, doing her little trips, and I'm going to Spain. Oh my God, baby.
She didn't even go to Africa. She went to
No,
Spain.
she went to Spain. So I gotta go see what the world looks like. Broke is all outdoors, man. I
Mm,
mean, but she got that brand, she got that car now. Oh, well, I gotta get it
yeah.
tuned up. I said, you know how much it costs to tune up a Mercedes Benz, baby? Ain't
Yeah.
no
For
spark
real.
plug, it's valves.
Right.
You gotta get them valves. Do you know? Oh, it ain't that much. I said, okay. Expect to spend $2,000. Period. And much driving you doing, you gonna have to probably tighten them valves up twice a year. But you couldn't tell her nothing, man. Couldn't tell her nothing. Could say, here's $5,000. Put this away for me. Invest it for me, Dad. Shh. That girl doing Uber, man.
Mm,
It's amazing. They don't want to listen. They know everything, though, bro. Oh, they feel entitled. I got $100,000. Can't tell me nothing. That was on 2 years ago now. Just
man,
two.
you can turn $100,000 into $500,000 so quickly if you just
Phew,
know
my
what you're doing.
brother. Just think about something. Call somebody. Somebody can help you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. It's amazing, man. It truly is amazing. But we this whole the four essentials, the four birds that Imam Muhammad talked about, is just amazing. The education and economics are pretty much the same thing because you're not going
Hmm.
to understand economics unless you got some education and so forth and so on. But I that brother left us with some beautiful language. He truly did. Understanding governance. Now, right now, this governance stuff, I don't know what's happening with this. I do know what's happening with this administration. I see what they're trying to do, but it's coming back on us economically.
Well,
Um,
they don't care about that part of it.
oh,
I mean,
no, no.
because it doesn't affect the people who basically spent the money to put him in office.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening here to people and their and jobs and income and debt and things like that don't affect them.
Nope. Does John not. Black Chicago. Does not. Does not at all.
So, as long as the general population and those people in Congress who are also beholding to people with large wallets.
Yes, sir.
As long as they're derelict in their duty of not really informing people of what we're going to be looking at in the
Mm-hmm.
future with the debt load and the benefit cuts on top of the debt load,
Man.
then that's where the real disservice comes in. We've had debt loads before.
Yes, sir.
I mean, if you look back at 9/11, if you look at 2008, 2009,
Yes,
when the
sir.
real estate collapse,
Yes, indeed.
even if you go back even before that to the tech collapse,
That's
when the
right.
dot coms fell
Sure,
apart,
my comments went down. That's right.
that we've had to have these bailouts, we've had to have government intervention where there was a lot of debt created, but we didn't have any reduction in benefits
Yep.
that
True.
occurred: Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security,
Right.
uh, other type benefits, even food stamps and things like that. We didn't have any of those benefit cuts
Mm-mm.
in those time periods. In fact, in a couple of those cases, I want to say in the real estate meltdown in '08, '09, and then for
Right.
sure with COVID, we had benefit upgrades.
Yes, sir.
If you were getting $500 a month in food stamps, all of a sudden you were getting $800 a month in food
Oh,
stamps,
my brother. Yes, indeed.
and stuff like that. Because I know people that couldn't believe it when they saw their thing. Called
Mm-hmm.
me to see if they should spend the money. It like they like cuz they say cuz is this real? you know, I get
It real.
I can spend this, I can spend this, I'm not to pay it back.
Oh, brother, it's real. It scared you. I know it scared them to death. I know some people
It
get
did.
$1,200, man. Wait a minute, $1,200 in food stamp? What's happening? Shh, man, they be out there eating. And now you can go to the restaurants and they'll take that card. Now it's not like
Really,
food stamps
really.
anymore. Man, if you got that card, it's like a debit card. But you can go to the best
Okay.
restaurants in the country and they will take that card, man.
Wow.
And
That's
that's see,
wrong right there.
and
They
see,
should
and see,
not
that's
they
why.
should not let people do that.
Yeah, see, that's why the Republicans are acting crazy now on Snap because you're putting it on a debit card. You ain't put nothing, no restrictions on it. You thinking people are going to do the right thing, buy it. They wasn't buying. They were buying food. They was out at restaurants eating, man. I mean, it was just mind boggling. Because you're not gonna say I eat out a lot, but I do go to nice restaurants so often. All I see is black folks out there, man. And that card, that little debit card, that's what they charging. They
Wow.
charging their food. I mean, they spending money. You don't have no business in the steakhouse with that debit card. You and your three kids, your boyfriend who only come around there doing the first of the month. you know,
Mm-hmm.
boy, I mean that was a big, big mistake. It used to be relegated to certain types of foods and this and that. Now they just give you the cash.
Interesting.
They give you the cash on the card. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
for people who don't have good financial strategies, that is not wise.
And I ain't gonna say they did it on purpose, but now they can justify taking it.
Well, I think, if my thinking is correct, and I don't know that much about those programs, but I know that just through some relatives of mine that you have to have some kind of cash portion of it
Yep.
because you need to be able to buy things for children,
Yep.
diapers, formula, you know, maybe I'm misstating some of this stuff, but there's
No,
certain
you're not.
things that
You're on
just the
point.
regular food stamp card didn't cover,
Right.
but that were very expensive and were necessary.
Yeah. In some is you always had the cash portion, then you had the food stamp portion, and you were limited to
Hmm.
food stamps, certain types of things you can buy. Now they put it on one card, brother.
It's all together.
All,
Okay.
all of it. And see,
Interesting.
they don't know
Okay.
they're being tracked. See, the government is tracking where you spend
Of
the
course.
money.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got
Because they get a report that does show where
yeah.
the
Yeah.
money
And
is being
so
spent.
that's what you call fraud, abuse, and what the brother was saying. We got some fraud and abuse taking place here, and that's what they're talking
Well,
about.
but that's abuse and not fraud. I mean, if it
Yeah,
if
I know.
they accept the card, that means that they've actually made a
Yeah,
contract with the government,
they have.
right?
They have.
So that's not fraud. That's just
Yeah.
to me, that's just abuse and
Straight
mismanagement.
up, straight up abuse, and they know it. They know it. You don't give a poor person who never even got out of high school $1,200 on one car. Come on.
Well, I mean, there are going to be, I mean, if this bill passes, and I haven't seen all the amendments that they're supposed to be voting on today in the
Hmm.
Senate, but if this bill passes, there's definitely going to be a reckoning for some people.
Wow.
Primarily probably in the area of work
Hmm.
requirements more than
Right.
anything else
Yeah,
initially.
that's coming.
But yeah, I think that part is coming, and that's going to be very difficult because there aren't that many jobs out there for unskilled labor.
And that is the magic word, my brother. Find a job. Well, you may have to be out there picking that cabbage all them Hispanics you ran out of town used to pick.
Well, yeah, but that means excuse me, for a lot of people, that means they have to move.
Yep,
I
no doubt.
mean, there is, if you live in Chicago, for
Hmm.
example, there are farm labor jobs in the
Yes, they
state of
are.
Illinois, right?
Yes, sir.
They're in the
Yes, sir.
southern and western part of the state.
Missouri the same way.
So yeah, and California in the desert, and then around Bakersfield, and
Hmm.
the high desert, and I mean those are tough jobs though. Those are
Oh my
very
God.
difficult jobs,
Yes, they
and
are.
you have to move.
Yes,
If
sir.
you want to go to Nebraska, just Nebraska governor's crying right now because they lost so many Hispanics.
Hmm.
So they've got corn harvest, wheat harvest,
Ooh.
all their grain and stuff is going to be, the harvest is coming in
Yep.
the early fall.
Yes, it is.
They're going to need people to do it, and it's not going to turn around quick enough for them to get a lot of legal farm labor
Right.
coming from Central America
Right.
to fill those jobs, the
That's
paperwork
true.
that you got to do and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
transportation that you have to arrange.
Yep. You got them chicken manufacturing place, cattle manufacturing places, man. It's going to be something. So we're going to go through a
Yeah,
period of this period of redressing, reorganizing, restructuring. Is going to get us. 'Cause if you don't have any skills, like here in St. Louis, in the St. Louis City, you have St. Louis City, you have St. Louis County. Uh, St. Louis City, man, I would say the average salary in the St. Louis City is probably 27,000 a year
okay,
if you're working. If you're working, and then the county is like 38 to 41. And when
dude, that's barely $10 an hour.
yes, yes, and
You can't live on. There's no way to live on $10 an hour.
no way, especially when the rent's going up the way it's going up. When I came to California, I left California. My rent and well, my daughter and my son took off to college. I was paying 28.60 for a two-bedroom.
Hmm.
Uh, and when I tried to, move down, they said $2,400 for one. Hey, wait a minute. But see, not I said it's time for me to
Yeah,
go home. Right?
right.
So I came home in 2008, no 2018, and my first two-bedroom here was like 1240. It wasn't bad. So cool, it's good. That same apartment. I moved out of there 1975.
Mm,
So we don't take in consideration taxation, inflation. We don't take in
right.
consideration that type of thing. If you just gonna think you're gonna be here, everything's gonna stay the same, you
It's
sadly
not.
mistaken. And that's what's happening
Yeah,
when you say, this is what happened to most people. They can't even qualify for a higher income. They have no skill sets whatsoever. So you have people doing. I mean, Uber is the big thing in St. Louis City.
I believe
It,
it. Yeah.
it is huge, man. Uber Eats, Uber, Lyft. It is huge.
DoorDash, is DoorDash big up there
Yeah,
too?
man, it's big. It's
Okay.
huge. But I don't want somebody to come to my house with 19 tattoos and looking dirty, your pants hanging off your butt, and cornrows, man. You bringing me some food? Man, please. I'm sorry. I don't even want to touch the bag. And all of them smell like weed. So it's like, man, who are these people? Who are these
That's your
folks?
that's your that's your play cousin. Three times removed. That's your play cousin 3 times removed.
I'm telling you.
You know,
So,
you know Pinky's
yeah,
boy.
Piggy and Shaniqua and them, you know. I mean, it's a place I like to go have breakfast, not too far from me every day. I go in there, and people that come in picking up them things, I said, "Who are these people? You picking up food for somebody looking like this?" I said, "Man, you ain't bringing me no food, man." I'm telling you. I mean, pants hanging out their butt, they smell like marijuana, they dirty looking, they dirty clothes, girls coming in their pajamas. I said, "These people coming here getting Uber food, take them to the hoop." And they use them cards, brother. Get them Uber thing. That's how they use
Interesting.
them. The snap card. But it's
Let's uh let's welcome Shura Banayum. I don't know the identity of that particular individual, but
that should be Martha.
assalamu alaikum.
That should be Martha.
Welcome to the conversation. Jump in anytime you want to. We're just talking about social affairs in the United States of America as they affect our community, and hopefully we get some bright ideas here tonight on things that we can do to help our community move forward.
I think it's
So
probably it's Martha Nyla.
probably it's either Sister Martha or potentially Sister Khalida Akbar.
Yes.
Um, that has that. And there are a couple of other individuals it could be, but welcome them and hope they will join us in this conversation. So
Yes,
let
sir.
me ask you this: what do you think? And let me preface it by saying that a large suburb of Dallas,
Mm-hmm.
basically, it's so much a suburb of Dallas that you don't know when you leave Dallas and when you enter Richardson, or when you leave Richardson and enter Dallas. They're that connected. You really don't know when you're one or in the other.
Right.
Richardson elected a Muslim mayor.
Really?
Yes.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. And this brother is he's a regular member of one of the three masjids as I kind of rotate and visit.
Right.
Uh the IANT Islamic Association of North Texas, which is in
Okay.
Richardson.
Okay.
So yeah. And 30, I think he's 39, maybe 40 by now. I can't remember what his
Okay.
birthday is, but
Uh-huh.
relatively young brother, IT executive, well spoken,
Mm.
but definitely Muslim. He's of Palestinian extract.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unusual.
hmm Smart
Mm.
as, I mean, he's very, very intelligent, very well spoken,
Mm-hmm.
young man, nice family. So yeah, that was interesting. That masjid, I'm trying to think of the name of the group. There was a group out of that masjid, and I'm going to say this is well over 10 years ago. I want to say this is almost 15 years ago
Okay.
that there's a group of men. I don't think there were any women involved, but there were a group of men out of that particular masjid who all basically received either very lengthy or life sentences
Right.
for raising money to support Palestine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they were prosecuted basically on the belief that they were getting money to the Palestinians, and the Palestinians were using that money to buy guns and bombs and whatever, which is pretty spurious because how do you know what somebody's spending your money in on that end when you
True.
send it from here, right?
Right. Right.
But to have uh, to have someone come out of that masjid, number one, that masjid to stay strong. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and still be very relevant. It's a really nice, good sized community. They're still relevant. and now to have a member of that masjid come out and become the mayor
Mm-hmm.
of a very prominent Dallas County um, city is, yeah, that was amazing.
Okay.
That was an
Population of
amazing deal.
what's the population of the city? You know,
I don't know. I would say it's probably in that 100 to 200,000
that's not bad.
range,
That's not bad.
something along those lines. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
active city, and that the people who live there tend to be, for the most part, middle
Mm-hmm.
class or upper middle class
Right.
and educated
Mm-hmm.
homeowners for the most part. I mean, it's a,
Right.
large homeowner population in Richardson,
Yes, sir.
a lot of tech firms in the tech corridor there. I mean, a
Okay.
lot.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, the fact that, he won convincingly. It wasn't close.
Wow. Wow. And in St. Louis
Yeah.
City, it's only 300. That's only 299,000 in the city of St. Louis. So that's not bad at
Yeah,
all.
but your whole area is huge, though. I mean, if you
Yeah, it
just
is.
count little St. Louis, then
Mm-hmm.
it's not a lot. But that metropolitan area
Oh yeah, the
is
metropolitan area.
large.
It's definitely large and upper middle class. you know,
Hmm.
that's where they are. Yeah, you're right. Wow, that's excellent, man. So, uh,
So it's, yeah. I'm just looking at it. It says 117, about 117, a little over 117,000
wow.
people in
Okay.
Richardson. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yep.
Beautiful. Yes, sir. And that's how I guess that's how we have to start in places like that. These little municipalities that we have access to, but you have to be involved politically. And
Yep.
most of our people are just not. School boards and council people, aldermen, wherever they are. That's where it starts at. And affecting the local government, will take you right into that city and that state
Man,
operation.
that is, you couldn't say that any better.
Hmm.
I was obviously very concerned and very upset that Kamala did not win the presidency,
Yeah.
right? I
Hmm.
mean, I voted for, I even contributed money to her campaign.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I was very disturbed that she didn't win. Um, but the true power, at least there was, I don't know what's going to come, with all these court decisions, but the true power has always really been at the local and state level
Yes, sir.
with the thing that the Republicans of all people used to scream about states' rights.
Right.
You
Hmm.
know, if you
Right.
were able to get control at the state level, then there's a lot that you could do at the state level
Oh
that
yes.
the federal government would try to do, but would be dependent on the states to do. And
Right.
you got to get all these votes in Congress, and
Yes,
you
indeed.
might have to get an amendment approved and voted on by three-quarters of the states, and
Right.
all that kind of stuff. So, which is why we did not have codified the Voting Rights Amendment,
Right.
because
And
we never put it out as an amendment to
hmm.
be ratified by all the states,
Yes, sir.
because everybody got happy,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, we have that tendency to really get emotional on
Yeah, we got happy. I can vote, Lord, Lord, you know, free at last, free at last.
them. Oh boy, I tell you, man.
Didn't know they could yank that card out of your hand.
Yes, indeed. They sure working on it, aren't they?
They're trying.
And this government, this governor stuff, man, it's just really, really amazing that you got governors who are in office, man, who think and act the way they do, but they got control of the local cities within their
Right,
state. So as long as they keep that
right.
kind of control, they're gonna always have the state, reps, and then the senators in the House and the representatives. Man, it's just you controlling everything, man.
Hmm.
Hello,
Yeah.
hello, hello, wheelchair bed that y'all got down there. I don't know what y'all gonna do with that boy. I don't
Well,
know.
there's unless enough people come out and vote.
Hmm.
Our biggest problem in the state of Texas, other than the fact that you you really don't know, depending on the portion of the state, you really don't know what the Hispanic population is going to do.
Right.
You don't know whether the Hispanic population is going to run conservative or they're going to vote along with Democrats. There's no longer a partnership between
Right.
Hispanics and African Americans like there used to be.
Right.
You know, I
Right.
mean, we used to be able to count on LULAC and La Raza Unidas
Mm-hmm.
to join with African Americans to
Right.
work toward mutual rights, especially in workplace and education and things of that nature. You could count on them, and they carried a whole lot of the Hispanic vote.
Yeah.
But once the a large portion of the Hispanic population got money,
Mm-hmm.
they started checking a different box.
Yeah, man. That
Well,
commerce
I
will
don't
make you.
started, yeah, they started checking that box. You know, I'm a little lighter this morning. I might be white.
Ooh, but I mean, the story of Texas and Mexico is so unusual. It's so unique, man. You know, I had to rethink. They had a Texas and Mexico annexation at one time, didn't they?
Well, no, I mean Texas was a part of Mexico.
Yeah, part of Mexico. Is what I'm saying. So when
Yeah,
they
but so was California.
true, absolutely, I agree with you,
Yeah, I
man.
mean, and there was, I mean, there in near Universal Studios, there's an old, what do they call them? I guess it's like an old church or
Mm-hmm.
something along those lines
Right, right.
of where the last battle of the Mexican American War
Mm-hmm.
was basically fought, or either that or they signed some kind of a treaty
Uh-huh.
in that particular little building or whatever, to end hostilities between Mexico and the United States, which led
Wow.
to the ceding of all that property,
Yeah.
California, Arizona, parts
Yes.
of New Mexico that weren't a part of Texas or
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Right.
to the United States.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, everything everything in set in, I guess outside of the Central Valley
Yeah.
in California has some kind of a Spanish name to it. A lot
Absolutely.
of it,
Yeah,
right?
it did. It surely did, brother. You know, it's just like in Seattle. They had the situation up there, all the seven mountains, I mean the major cities up there, Renton, Puyallup, Seattle, all were named after Indian chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
people don't realize that was the
Yep.
Indian territory for a long time.
Right.
Puyallup, the seven major cities in Seattle, up in the state of Washington, are
Mm-hmm.
named after seven Indian chiefs.
Yeah. So I mean that history is there,
Yes,
and
man.
the connection's still there
Yeah.
in that in the state of Texas, the number one economic driver outside of just citizens of the state,
Hmm.
it is the country of Mexico
Wow.
for economics in the state of Texas. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
trade
Right.
going back and forth. Even people, El Paso, Del Rio,
Yeah.
Laredo,
Right.
Brownsville, people
Hmm.
walking across the bridge from Mexico to come shop at Walmart and Target and all those places,
Right.
and then going back home. I
Going
mean,
back home. And that's
dude,
something.
Laredo, the most profitable Walmart supercenter in the United States is in Laredo, Texas.
Isn't that something?
And
Wow.
the general manager of that store,
Hmm.
they had to cap him at $1 million a year.
Whoa. Outrageous.
Yeah, they had
Outrageous.
to, because he would have been making almost. My brother said my brother was a mid-level manager at Walmart, but my
Hmm.
brother said that guy would have made close to $2 million a year if they hadn't capped him.
Wow. Boy, boy, boy. It's amazing history, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so amazing. And that's where they got us at, man. They start sending them drugs across here, man, and we just drugged out. Don't know anything about where we live. You know, it's amazing, man. What
But the
goes.
drug consumption
Hmm.
is a product of not having resources,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
not just financial resources, because
Right,
obviously to buy drugs you got to have financial resources.
right.
After a while, they're not just going to give them to you. Once they get you hooked, they make you buy them.
Oh yeah.
But they're the resources of the soul, the resources of consciousness, the resources of reason.
Yes.
Just like we were talking about money and people
Hmm.
not being able to manage money,
Right.
people don't know how to manage the emotional side of their humanity either.
Yes, sir. Yes,
They
sir.
don't have any kind of anchors or anything like that that help them
No,
to manage how
no.
they feel.
They call it foundation, huh? Yeah, we definitely don't have it. That's for sure. It's just something.
Sure, Banium, you have your hand up, and I think we've been joined by Imam Adam Bi as well. But go ahead, sure, Banium.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. This is Sister Khalida.
You
Hello,
gonna
Sister
Islam?
Kalita. How are you?
I'm well, mashallah, yourself?
Doing well.
Doing good. Doing good.
Yes, I had two things I wanted to talk about. First, I wanted to talk about the brothers that are, probably doing the DoorDash and running around, as we were saying, and not appropriately representing themselves. I would like to acknowledge the ones that are coming to Islam in droves, and it is
Alhamdulillah.
helping them clean themselves up. It's helping them
Mm-hmm.
clean themselves up in the masjid. People who have came over the last 2 years here in Charlotte, and I know Atlanta has a high amount of new shahadas, that you see a change in them. They clean
Oh yeah.
themselves up, make us a lot. They're doing um, the best that they can do for themselves and their families. And that just goes to show that Islam in itself is a change agent. And if we keep making the dua and allowing, doing dawah, and allowing people to come in, meeting them where they are, and providing opportunities for them to clean themselves up and model what it looks like to be in a clean situation so they don't have to, represent themselves like that. I think it really would make it really is making a big difference, and it would make a better difference because they're striving to make it in a world that's already set up for the rich to get richer. And so if they don't have the education, they don't have the family ties, they don't have even the um the educational background or the employment background to make it, in this country, but yet they're striving, they're continuing to do that. Your heart just goes out to those, especially the ones who are striving to help with their families and if they have children, to take care of their children. But
Yes. Yes,
definitely,
ma'am.
I
Yes,
just know that a lot of our black males, they have the long hair now and they struggling. Some of them do, like you said, smell like the
ma'am.
weed, things like
Hmm.
that. That's not acceptable. However, we have a remedy for that. I think Imam Rashad, he was at the Charlotte Masjid this Friday, and he was talking about just the male and female knowing their roles. It has
Right.
a medicinal effect on
Hmm.
our community, and we need that. Even if the woman's stronger or more educated, he said the roles that Allah put us in will help us. They will help the men build up themselves, and they will
Right.
also help females be more creative and more nurturing and be able to have a well-rounded community life. And so Islam, we want to make sure that we are fully aware of the remedy that Allah has put in front of us and utilize that. And when we start building our communities, inshallah, we'll be able to get rid of a lot of the riba. We'll have more control over our lives, and we can look at our people, um, in a way that we can model for our people how they should be presenting themselves and give them opportunities to have a cleaner lifestyle from the inside out. So that was just awesome what you said, because we all see the same thing, and we all, we're washing up, prepare 5 times a day, and you're keeping yourself clean. You don't want somebody, you do look at somebody who's handling your food. I mean, nails clean, or they run around droopy pants, they look like they're high off of something. You don't want that. But at the same time, you want really, because you're getting
I
ready to
understand.
cook it, right? You're gonna eat it.
I
So you
understand.
want people we want to be a part of the solution, as I'm sure you are as well. And then lastly, I wanted to make a reference to Kamala Harris. I know a lot of us wanted her to win, but also a lot of us did not vote because of the Green Party. They want the Green Party because of the Palestine. connection with um, the president, and even though she didn't have the say in that, it was just a tie. And there were people who straddled the fence because the law says that if you aid in a bad cause, you get some of the consequence. So they were really scared. The people who
Right.
understand it like that, they were really scared to support that
Hmm.
party because they didn't want to have the wrath of a law. So
Now,
what do you think about that? And then so the Green Party
They
really that it didn't help. So it's like a catch 22.
yeah. So they got the wrath of Allah because they allowed the election of a man who is as much anti-Allah and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what our prophet, peace and blessing be on him, stand for. They allowed the election of a man who is as opposite, not straddling the fence at all,
not
who
at
is
all.
as opposite those things, those ideas, those ways of life, our deen, as you can possibly get.
Yes.
It's hard to imagine a person in a leadership position who is more polar opposite of what we are supposed to stand for than that man.
That's true.
So
That is.
anything that you did to aid and abet him, forget hurting anybody else or helping anybody else. If you deemed him worse than the rest of them, if you did anything to help him, then the wrath of God should descend upon your situation, which if you're Palestinian American, if you're an Arab American, um, you're probably feeling a lot of pain
Oh yes.
these days about what's happening to people that you're related to, people from your tribe, people from your country. You're probably feeling it pretty bad, and you don't hear a lot out of them anymore. All those people that were beating their chest about Trump and beating their chest about Biden and beating their
Hmm.
chest about Harris, they're very noticeably quiet.
That's true. I agree with you there. There's just so many different factors that go into this whole thing, but the point is, they know who this man is and what he was, and if to put him in this office right now, the consequences are ours. And I think that's one of the areas of concern where this whole education of economics and commerce comes in, Brother Edward and Sister Kalita. Uh, it's like a whole new revamping of how we manage our lives now because what this man is currently doing to this country, economically and educationally. You're trying to take our history out of schools. You're trying to take, you don't even want us to share our story, but yet we want to hear your story, which is deadly to our young people. And then the economics of all of it. Most people just, when they hear the word economics, they don't think that commerce is economics. You don't have any businesses, any opportunities to go into business, there will be no economics. So is this whole process that we're going through currently is something we're gonna have to get real serious about. It is a crisis beyond our thought process because we got to deal with this.
Well, well, hold on. It's not beyond our thought process, right? It's like what
Not
Sister
us.
Kalita was
I
saying.
mean,
Well, but this is where the leadership part comes in,
yeah,
right?
okay. Hmm.
So, like what Sister Kalita was saying about what's happening in Charlotte and other places,
Sure.
whatever systems, practices that they have in place that are pulling people in who maybe a year or two ago would not have considered Al Islam
Sure.
as a direction for them, as a way of life for them,
Hmm.
that if they're doing things that are successful in changing that mindset, those behaviors,
Your behavior. Yeah.
then incorporating those things across the board, across our communities,
Hmm.
that's a form of leadership and it's a form
Yeah.
of change
Yes.
that would allow for us to start having some sustainable successes in the face of all this other stuff
Yeah.
that's
Some
going
influence.
on.
Yes, we need the influences, and you're right. I agree with 100%.
Assalamu alaikum,
Well,
man.
well, Lakem Salam,
Yes,
brother.
sorry if I chime in.
Yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
Yes.
And
Adam,
I'm,
salam alaikum, my good brother.
yeah, I'm not seeing who's this.
Rashid.
You don't know it.
Oh,
Hey, Adam,
man, I ain't
Adam.
heard from
Hey,
Rashid so long. I don't even
Adam,
know him no more.
You don't
Yeah,
know him. You
yeah.
don't know him. You don't know him.
See, you went on earlier when I
I ain't
shared.
heard Rashid in so long.
You went on
I
earlier
feel
when
like
I
I know.
shared with Edward. My Sunday class has just been it's just knocking me up. I'll be back this month though. Class our semester ends.
Okay, alhamdulillah, brother.
Yeah,
Good to hear
I've
from you,
been
man.
from 9/11. I'm in
Yeah,
the class, man. So I'm
I
good.
ain't gonna talk about you, man. Yeah, I ain't
You
gonna talk
go
about you,
ahead.
man.
Go ahead. Hit me with it. I'm humble. I can take it. I can take that rock that you throw.
Alhamdulillah.
Well, how's the
Yeah,
family?
I was listening to alhamdulillah. I was listening to some of the things Sister Khalida said, and I said, "Hey, that sound like back in 1972 when I became a Muslim." You follow me?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Because back then we came off the street. As a matter of fact, I was talking with the Imam Irvin in Winston. He said when they first saw me back in the 72, and I came off the street, they were worried. That's how wild I was looking. You follow me?
Right.
They were worried. I was looking wild, brother. But the reality is that we were coming into the Nation of Islam at the time, and that phenomenon that Sister Khalida described was happening all over the country. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
It was happening all over the country. Now, and in smaller masjids, like in Winston-Salem, it was happening in Winston-Salem because we were the champions for the African Americans. That's what we were doing. And so if we can get back to that, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. But again, so I just wanted to say that was a phenomenon that definitely we need to talk about.
Yeah, because I was actually gonna. Okay.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask Sister Kalita to after you're finished to expand a little bit on what she thinks is working there in Charlotte that might be able to be incorporated in other places that may not be having the same kind of success.
Oh, okay. Alhamdulillah. Yes, but that definitely was happening all over. And one more thing, in terms of, I just came from a political meeting here in Fayetteville, and they were talking about the, of course, the party situation and Democrats and Republicans or whatever. I have a client. One of my clients is Yemeni, and he admitted to me that they voted for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to shock him to death. So I stared him dead in his eyes. I said, "Brother, why'd you vote for my enemy?" And he thought I was serious. Oh, he was worried. So now he come in the office. Now he come to the office, and now he's admitting that he messed up because he's got to worry about deportations and all that other stuff.
Wow.
Right? And he said he's leaving, going to Jordan to he had an appointment with the immigration to try to get his son into North Carolina. I mean, come to America in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
It showed me the lack of vision and foresight. And what you were saying, Rashid, that they didn't know what they were doing.
No, they didn't.
They didn't know what they were doing. They thought they were doing some good. Now here, homeboy done bombed the heck out of Iran. So what his stance is on Muslim.
Shoot.
You know what I mean? So
You talking about taking
We
Panama
got to.
Green?
Yeah, you talking craziness, man.
Yeah,
And them MAGA followers, you got to believe that's what it's gonna be. So
yeah,
we had to do better. We had to do better, and
yes,
we got to stay and get involved. And I think what we have in terms of in our faith in this reality, what we have far exceeds anything that they have.
yes, sir. I agree. Yeah,
Far
I'm just
exceeds anything they have, and now they're recognizing that, and we have to do the same as
right.
African Americans. You know,
Yeah,
we have to
yeah,
do the same.
I agree. Like I mean, Edward was talking about how we got to start at the local level, our cities and our, and our state levels. We have to begin to change this whole governance concept because we've been governed by these people and don't know how to get them out. But this unity and this communication that we're going to have to try do our best. I'm gonna say try. We're gonna have to do this if we're gonna make any changes that take place in any of these local communities. We got to get busy
Hmm.
politically, educationally, and this cultural
Hmm.
dynamic that Imam Muhammad left us with. We just have to find a way to do these. I call them pilot projects. The pilot, somewhere you got to do something that could be replicated somewhere else. And if we can begin that process, and we know how to do it, because I wasn't a part of the first RIP, but I do know it was small entities that came together. You kept replicating. Next thing you know, you was all over the country. So that's somewhat what we're going to have to do. So when you mention, it sounds like the early days. Well, that's how it starts. A new education, a new revelation, man. And that's where we are to me.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the job. But who's going to stand up and begin that process is my concern and what I'm trying to work here.
Well, that's us.
Yeah,
That's us.
that's it.
Yeah,
That's
I
us.
mean that's part of
Yes,
what we're actually doing. I mean,
yes, sir. I agree.
even if it's just a small piece of it that Graceline's trying to do, and the things that you've tried to do there in St. Louis with the
Mhm.
classes that you've had, and what other people are doing around the country, in their small way,
Yeah,
all of that collectively has to continue.
there's the word. That's the magic.
And
Collective.
as everybody learns what works and then what doesn't work, what needs to be improved on, and things like that, we've got to be able to share that information,
Yes,
you
sir.
know, to within all of our communities,
Yes, sir.
so that people can know they shouldn't be starting. If something's working in Charlotte, Miami should not be starting, at day one with scrambling to understand what's good. They
Right.
should have a blueprint that at least they can work with from Charlotte. Even if the culture there is a little different, the people have a little different background, whatever, those alterations can be made, based on what your population is. But
Mm-hmm.
if the core of what you're doing should be able to be followed almost everywhere, as long as what you're doing is successful.
Yes, sir. That pattern is essential. That
Share,
blueprint.
yeah, right. So we start sharing that information around the country and helping, other groups, other communities start incorporating those things and be there for feedback, conversations, those type things. So we can make things move a little bit faster.
Yes, sir. I agree. That's a fact.
Hmm.
I think Cleta has her hand up still. There there she go.
Oh yeah,
Um,
alhamdulillah. I was just waiting to add
yes,
to
sir.
what I said about what we're doing in Charlotte.
Hmm.
Many of us are just doing the same thing. I believe that because we have a mixed population, we have a lot of young adults as well as pioneers and families with children. That the events that they have are geared more towards a lot of getting together for social events, and I think we need that. I know there was one sister who offered her services. I know she works for mental health in some capacity. I think she's either, at the front desk at the mental health department, but she is really good at listening, and she offered her services to just come and listen, especially when our community was going through a lot of transition a couple months back. But what she did is created just like the coffee and tea night. I don't know how often she was doing it at the masjid. But just come out under the tent, have coffee and tea and snacks, and just talk, just like you would get off of work and go somewhere else to a lounge and do that. That was one example. She's one of our middle-aged sisters, and she very calm, and she's a married sister, Sahadia, married
Yes,
to brother Active. So
yes, ma'am.
she, and then she's also very soothing. She
Mhm.
and she also very respectful of different opinions. And I know she's like,
Right.
so and so she's very mature for her age. However, we
Mhm.
also have like our 47 under population, like our imam right now, he's 47. Imam Ibn
Right.
Mutakabir. They just did a
Right.
brothers retreat and invited Imam Rashad, which was a tradition that Imam Khalil had started. And he's actually doing a lot of the things. He didn't go off and just chart a new course totally. They already had a lot of autonomy within the community under Imam
Mhm.
Khalil's leadership. So he created that. The Brothers Summit, being one of the seven associate imams that was already, he used to be so quiet and be up under Imam Khalil a lot, but he was the one out of all seven who said that he would take the challenge. The other ones didn't really, he was the only one that we had to vote on. It was between him and, of
Alhamdulillah.
course, Furman, Imam Ronald Shahid. The other ones are into their families or just did not want the challenge or just were not being able to commit to that type of commitment in time to the. So I say all this to say that just being in tune to your community, knowing the demographics. Ibn's wife is very, she just came from Africa. Aisha's been, he works for the Air Force, so they travel a lot. They well rounded and they do things that engage other people their age. And then also they include the pioneer population. Like they take the seniors to botanical gardens every year. She would do the beach trip for Sister Claire Muhammad Weekend School that we have. She would plan, rent out the beach house. I know at least for the past 7 years she did that, and just getting used to it. We take it, not take it for granted, but that's just what's expected. But when we go other places, we see the blessing that we have here. We see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has really given us a unique opportunity to reach different people, different demographics, and also, um, create events that we would like to see in our community, and we just get a nice response. So just keeping the social avenues open, making sure that people feel welcome, without always being judged. But they definitely have clothes in the brother's room. And they
Mhm.
definitely have Islam 101. Imam Ibn was doing that under my father for several years. Of course, we have
Alhamdulillah.
Imam Rao Shahid when he's available. We haven't seen him like we would like to, but he's busy writing books and traveling and promoting Imam the Worthy Muhammad's language. But just different demographics, something for everybody.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah,
I mean,
one of the things is I traveled throughout the country because I was in Chicago 2 weeks for 2 weeks about a month ago, and what I'm seeing all over the country, one of my biggest opportunities are prison reentry. These young men and women who are coming home from the prison system, and to have some type of training programs for them, which is Edward was talking about what I do here. Uh, Opportunities for getting into construction, opportunities for women to get into certain types of businesses, doing the coding, all those things are out here currently, but the mechanism for us to come together and, like I said, take these resources that you were speaking of and coming together and working with other communities. And my biggest thing is that I have a lot of success working outside the Muslim community. Not that I do it on purpose, but people are looking for Muslims to do some things, and they get behind you and they work with you. So our prison reentry program here is huge. As I work with the brothers in Alabama and in Chicago, there's a lot of good men who have been influenced by Al Islam who come out, but they have nothing to walk into. So resources are the key. What do they do? What can we offer them to get them on their feet again? And what can we offer our young ladies? It's a lot of women who are getting out of prison. And, I mean, a lot of them who have broken families and things like that. That we just going to find a way, as you were saying, Khalida, to get involved in our community, know what the demographics are, know what organizations and community are. And I think Shahid Abdullah out of Jersey, I'm working with him. He's doing this thing called the Association of Community Planning. Is something that we're going to have to get involved in as Muslims, and work with our Christian community, work with our neighborhood associations and people like that. Everybody's looking for somebody to take the lead. And this shock and awe stuff that's taking place right now, somebody's going to have to make the move. And I believe, being that we are making the move, it's going to have a lot of success with that influence that we do provide for the community. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
To take a moment to welcome Brother Muhammad Sharif and also Sister Manira to tonight's conversation. Thank you guys for
Walaikum
joining us.
assalam.
Okay, so yeah, I'm ready for the work. I wasn't a part of the first, but look, y'all, I got to do it what y'all did back in the first, I guess. It's still what goes around comes around, I guess. We got to redo that all over again, brother Adam. Hey, I mean,
Inshallah.
we
may be walking a little bit slower, but we still walking.
Well,
That's why.
one of the good things is that there are a large number of individuals who were in the Nation of Islam before 1975 who still understand and have appreciation for the structure that was there. And yeah, we don't walk in that same walk like the nation did, as far as our beliefs about al-Islam and all of those things. But doesn't mean you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
True.
Doesn't mean that the structure that helped the nation to reach the level of success that it had should be totally tossed away. You're gonna have to, you have to deal with some modern sensitivities in trying to put a structure like that back in place, or something similar to it.
Sure.
But most of the time, when I find myself talking about things that I know would help our community move forward, it's a structure that, though not 100%, a perfect replica of what the nation had, but it is definitely something along those lines where we all are basically agreeing to a set of principles and operational features across the board, and and willing to submit to those and work within those guidelines.
Right. I agree.
We need to agree on those guidelines, I think. And maybe that's a very difficult path for us right now, but I think, man, if it worked that well without us having the benefit of Imam Deputy Muhammad's guidance, think how much better it would work now with his guidance.
I tell you that those four essentials are still there. They just haven't been utilized. I got to say this one thing real quick. When I look at in my study of the Nation of Islam, I go back to 1917s, 1920s, where we didn't have that education, we didn't have that type of participation as we have now. But they set a blueprint and a model on how to do this, and it was all about commerce. I know it was segregation and all that type of thing at that time, but boy, we have a beautiful model of what we've done during the worst of times. I mean, what these brothers and sisters did, man, back in 70. I mean, can you imagine black woman started the first chartered bank, 1917. I'm still trying to put my mind around that. The fact that we had millions of dollars, the Freedmen's Bank, and all those things, and we know what happened between Jim Crow laws and things of that nature. But we've done this before. We've done it with the Nation of Islam. When I was talking about what happened during the mortgage balance crisis, what happened during the .com crisis, but we keep coming out of this smarter and wiser. And with the knowledge that we can still do this, if we can just come up with, as you saying there, with that blueprint, that pattern that we can model throughout this country, it has to be done somewhere. And we had one bank, we wound up with 500 banks before 1940. That's mind-boggling to me. I mean, it could be 34 banks, then 500 newspapers. You forced Seattle and how in the world did we do that? God has been with us for a long time. He has been with us. So to coming through and all my studies that I've done through the Nation of Islam, I'm telling you, I could not believe that we monopolized the fish industry and the Saudi industry. It just blew my mind that we were able to do that. And is it possible to do again? And the answer is emphatically yes. So where do we start? And I think I'm right where you are, Edwin. How do we start? Where do we start? And what tools and strategies that we put together to implement those things somewhere? And I think Graceland has always been to me, because I know the importance of economics. I know the importance of being able to access funding. If we just learn this one thing, that fractional banking exists. Why we keep giving our money to Bank of America? But we got to get that charter first. I do know what you said. That education right there is one that I never stop talking about and never will stop talking about. Our money is not recycling within our own systems, within our own community, with a focus attached to that. And that's why it's those are some of the components that you were talking about. Yeah, we're going to have to put together, piece it together, and make something happen.
Well, keep in mind that back in the days where we had those structures operating,
yes, sir,
it was not done correctly.
Right, I agree with you, 100%.
The Caucasian knew he can shut us down anytime he wanted to.
He went to New Jack City on us. He sure did.
And as soon as Honorable Muhammad passed, what did they start doing? Attacking it.
Yes, sir.
Because the businesses that we had was not normal businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Who owned them?
Right.
You following?
Yes, sir.
There's no way with the nonprofit laws in America that a nonprofit can have own business like that.
Right.
It's just not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
And when a nonprofit has a business, they call it on something business income.
Yes.
And it's taxable. It's taxable.
I understand.
It's taxable. We wasn't paying tax on the money. It wasn't part of a legal entity.
Right.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So they know they can shut it down anytime they want to.
Yes, sir. And you're right.
And that's what they did. As soon as Honorable Muhammad passed, they went after it.
Yes, sir. You pull the rug.
Right? Yes. Who's this?
It's Muhammad Sharif.
Oh, sure, Muhammad Sharif.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm on my phone. I can't see who it is. Muhammad. I'm like, so that's what he did. He went after him.
Like my son, I just let someone know that you own.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we can't do it that way no more.
You're right.
And that's Imam Muhammad saw that, and that's why he did what he did.
Mm-hmm. Which was correct.
Right? He just did it too late.
Yep.
Give you an idea.
Mm-hmm.
The fish.
Yes, sir.
But I sold fish. I sold fish in Winston-Salem when it's 95 degrees out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm walking around with a $5 pound of fish, hoping I can sell it before it melts.
It's not funny. It's not funny, but I know what you're saying, brother.
That's it. But we were committed, brother. We were committed.
Brother. Hey, well, that says the doorway to success is commitment, brother.
Yes, sir. But personally, I ain't make no money. I I would have preferred it to be set up in a network marketing scheme. At least I'd have made something. You follow what I'm
I
saying?
know. I understand. Yes, sir. Ooh, brother.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was when I first came into the nation back in 1970, end of 1972.
Mm-hmm.
I came out the streets,
I feel you.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I had nowhere to stay. So the first place I lived in Winston-Salem, I moved in with a brother, and I come to find out later on that he was a government agent.
Wow.
I came home from selling papers, and I opened up the drawer in the kitchen, and there was a bag of reefer in the drawer.
Mm-hmm.
I flushed that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I figured out it's somebody trying to set me up.
Yes, sir.
So then I moved out, and we had a school in Winston-Salem in the basement, and the believer said I could move into the basement. They had a little room back there.
Right.
Me and another brother, WF, was staying in the room in the basement. Didn't have no job. We hungry. Sister cooked some navy beans. They were going to cook some bean pies the next day. We went in the kitchen and broke up a couple of bowls and ate them.
Those were the days, my friend.
Those were the days, brother.
Oh,
Those
brother.
were the days.
Man, you living to tell a
So
story.
we can tell a story about that.
Yes, sir.
We can tell a story about that. You know. But I came in the community. They wanted to help me. Good luck.
Right.
Until I get on my feet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We don't have, that's what it was. So we can't go back to that.
You cannot.
Because that system, we had some good, honest people down here, but that system brought a lot of Cadillacs, brother.
Wow.
And brought a lot of Lincolns up north.
Phew.
You follow what I'm saying? That system did all that.
And he sound
So
like
when
the
the
church.
man came in office, he started moving people around from their power base. Oh, they hated him.
Yes, sir.
He hated it. Took Isaiah out of Philadelphia and moved him somewhere else. Took Farrakhan and moved him to Chicago, away from his power base.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said on National Hookup, I drive a Pontiac. In other words, people going looking at their minister, and he's driving a deuce and a quarter. Y'all know what deuce and quarter is, right?
I know it. I had one.
So did I. When you couldn't have the Cadillac, you had to do some quarter.
Yeah, you had the deuce. You got to have the
Deuce and a
deuce.
quarter.
Man,
And they're driving Cadillacs and everything else. And then the man Muhammad said, in the National Hookup, I'm driving a Pontiac.
Mm-hmm.
It don't take long to look around at that minister and what in the heck you doing driving that? Our leader driving a Pontiac. You need a Pontiac. Oh no. Oh man, he was breaking it up, man. It got to the point he went to Philadelphia and he was on the address and he told the audience, these people are threatening my life. In a public address.
Wow.
Gangsterville.
Ooh, brother.
But he told them, I'm not bound. That's my leader.
Yes, sir.
That's the brother I follow.
Alhamdulillah.
Everybody else is just a pretender.
I'm with you, brother.
So we do have to have a system that we can replicate.
Yes, sir.
And I agree with it.
I was wondering, Adam, what would it take to sit down? I mean, being you in the field, what would it take? What type of strategy should we put in place? I know Rabani was working on something like that at one time. Strategies for economic development. He had a layout. Somebody has to put it together, and then we can be able to massage it as we move forward. what was the first place you would start if you had to do something? And I think it's in recruiting. I know that getting the right minds and so forth and so on. So, is anybody working on that particular strategy that you know
It,
of currently?
it is so simple.
Uh huh.
You start at the masjids.
Alhamdulillah, that's true.
But the
Every
masters don't have technical people, man.
no, no, no.
Yeah,
I'm
with
not
the
talking
masters.
about. I'm not talking about technical ability. I'm not even talking about any high level business acumen. I'm talking about using the assets that we have available in our community, which number one, outside of our individual business owners and where they have their businesses and run their businesses successfully, we have properties, we have masjids that have space that's sent empty for a good portion of every week.
Mm-hmm.
You can turn that business property into nonprofit success by simply opening the masjid for a few hours a day, initially doing nothing more than selling coffee and pastries, tea and pastries, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, if
Who's
we're able
selling
to,
it?
well, the people in the
Who's
masjid
selling
who
it?
don't, people in the masjid who don't have a 9 to 5, where they got to show up at work every day, but they're sitting on their front porch or just sitting around the house watching Good Morning America or whatever the case may be. If they have a good mind and if they have energy, and if we have a brother or two who's willing to be security for 2 or 3, maybe 4 hours a day to show up there to make sure they don't get robbed or abused, that they can simply sell coffee and bean pies and other pastries, and eventually we expand that if we're able to get contracts again to have fish brought in where we start selling fish sandwiches, and you start building from very simple things, and you build a reputation for quality, and you build a reputation for being a safe place to come, and you just build from that, and maybe it gets big enough and enough of a following that either the masjid has to build on a space or the community creates a community room somewhere that is an actual freestanding business, or like in a strip mall or something like that, and you just continue what you started at the masjid. That, to me, those are
Okay.
just simple little things to start with, where we're a lot of times we think about big projects, right? I
No,
mean, getting
no.
a
Yeah.
getting a credit union is a big project, and it's a worthwhile project, and we shouldn't stop those big projects. But sometimes you got to do some little things too to give yourself momentum, give yourself cash flow, give yourself a base on which to build. Maybe even, these young people or something who don't have a job, you know, you pay them a little bit to be behind the counter serving coffee and bean pies. Give them a little something. But I mean, that's just a small idea that I've had for 2 or 3 years.
Well,
And I did talk to Rabani about that when he was
Mm-hmm.
trying to get, coffee, work on a coffee deal in Kenya and Ethiopia. And I think he's still working on that. Of,
Right.
hey, this is a distribution network for that coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Let's sell it there by the cup, and let's also sell by the bag out of our
Mm-hmm.
masjids,
Sure.
right?
well, let me. No, there's nothing wrong with that. But let me say one thing, because you still got to structure it out business wise. You got to structure it out. It ain't gonna happen unless you structure it out.
I
Right.
agree.
So, and that's what I was mainly speaking of, not to say an idea of sale or
Okay.
anything like that, because it is. But I'm trying to structure it out to make
Yes.
it make sense.
So
Mm-hmm.
Now,
if you
one thing I'm gonna
use if
say, as I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, if you use a system, even a system as simple as Square Up, right, where you have like just a scanner that you can put on an iPad in there. So let's say you have a central distribution center. Let's say that it's Rabani and DeLacy are bringing in coffee from Africa. and they have their warehouse space there in Florida, and then they ship with their own barcodes and all this stuff. They ship this stuff to different
Mm-hmm.
parts of the country, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they know who they're distributing to. They're going to wait. They're going to wait, as they've done with the black seed oil in many cases, when they give it to people to sell. They're going to wait on monies to come back in. Sometimes, if you're trying to help get everything set up, it's something that you do if you can afford to do it, right? So if you're scanning everything that's all set up under one heading, let's say that one particular business. Let's say we're just talking about coffee. If it's just set up under that, every time a bag is open that's going to be used to making coffee, that's scanned in. That's an item, that's a sale item. Anytime somebody comes in and buys an entire bag, of course, that's easy. That's scanned in, and you know that you're going to have a certain amount of revenue coming there. The location, the masjid, it knows that a percentage of every sale that they make is going into masjid's coffers, and the rest of it's going into a separate account that will return to Rabani and DeLacy's company, so on and so forth. That's a really simplistic explanation of something that would take a little bit more technical work to set up, but it's not beyond the scope of what we can do. We can do that.
It's better than nothing.
Well, let me say this for the record. I have clients that are sole proprietorships, and whatever it might be, and they make enough money to support their families. You following?
Yes, sir.
I do. Yeah.
And what they need, I mean, and people say, well, you got to have a college degree or whatever. Well, most of my clients don't have college degrees. A lot of them don't. You follow me? But they are able to have income and make enough in their small business to support their families.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's my knock against everybody going to college.
and that's okay, because you don't need to go to college necessarily to be a plumber or an electrician, to be a carpenter. They even to run a small business, any kind of retail operation.
Right.
You don't necessarily need a college degree for that. I think if you
Right.
obviously, if you start making a good deal of money, it'd probably be helpful to you to learn some things that college may have taught you about financial management and things of that nature. But you can still pick that stuff up outside of college. You don't have to have it, for real.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But the kind of stuff I'm talking about falls right in line with what you're saying. You don't need a college degree to sell coffee. You don't need that.
Right.
You don't need a college degree to sell bean pies, fish sandwiches, macaroni and cheese. You don't need a college degree to do that. You probably need a little bit of knowledge of being able to understand what your costs are, not just in the product, but also in labor, to be able to set a fair price that's going to allow you to make money, right? In this case, we're probably talking about starting off just making enough money to expand the operations of a masjid, maybe support a school or something of that nature. So we're not talking about anything huge, even though it would be important, but being able to price things accordingly, but there are formulas that you can buy, or they can just engage an accountant like you to be able to help them determine what the pricing should be based on what you're paying for the product that you're bringing in, the labor that you're having to pay for, and things like that. You come up with a price,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these are things that we can do. And when you're successful doing these little things, it definitely helps you think bigger of, you know what, I can
Yeah.
make the next step up.
Exactly.
We just have to
Yeah.
we have to start. We have to start in places that we haven't. Because a lot of places around the country we have started. If you go to Newark and that area, there's a lot of Muslims owning businesses and doing wonderful things. Atlanta the same way, in different places. So, but it's not replicated. We're not sharing that information, right? We're not franchising out or anything of that nature either to be able to replicate in other places. So we got to do a better job of all of that, I think.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Alaikum assalam.
I think the first thing we wasn't listening to Imam Adam when he was saying, when we was out selling fish and all that, I did the same thing. I remember one day we was out trying to sell fish, 80 degrees, 85, 90 degrees, with some fish in a cooler. At one time, my brother and I, we was two or three of us was together. Man, we went into the hallway of this project and we prayed to Allah to help us out of that situation. You got fish out there that's thawing out on you, and people looking at you like you have lost your mind, which you had lost your mind in a sense. Walking around trying to sell some fish that's thawing out. I mean, evidently we have not listened what Imam Adam was telling us what happened in those days. And he got the lieutenants, the captains, and they living good, got big cars and all that stuff. And the poor brother that's out there trying to sell some fish or whatever is starving, losing his. If he came into the community to have a business, he's losing his business. He can't pay his mortgage anymore, losing his house. All that was going on, and the captains and the lieutenants and all of them were living big. That's when Imam came in. See, I think that's one thing we missing, how he shut down that whole thing. I've asked people, if everything was so good in the nation of Islam, why did Imam shut it down? That one of the first thing the Imam did when he came to Philadelphia and came back, first thing he did was shut down all that corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the people, why did the Imam shut it down? Because it was corrupt. Corruption has seeped into the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's community. People going to Hajj. They go to Hajj selling dope when they go and come back from Hajj still selling dope. And prostitution, all that corruption was going on. People being beaten up in the temple, thrown down the stairways. All that corruption was going on. That's why the Imam shut it down. And nobody seemed to want to know, why did he shut it down? It was so good. Corruption has seeped into the Imam's Muhammad's community. And the same thing is happening right. Like Imam said, how are you going to, Brother Willis, what you were saying, that's so good, but why you going, you can't build anything today selling fish sandwiches, or coffee by the cup and all that. You can't sell, who is going to work the system? Who
Well,
gonna work
I would,
that?
I would,
Listen,
I
listen,
would,
listen,
I would
let me
ask
finish.
Starbucks. Ask Starbucks.
Let me
Ask
finish, please. Let me
Starbucks.
finish, please. Let me
Ask
finish.
Starbucks.
Okay, let me finish, please. Okay, that's Starbucks. Starbucks has money behind them. Who are you going to get to sell some coffee and whatever? How much money are you going to pay them? The man can't pay his rent, can't pay his support his family. He can't do nothing with less than minimum wage. And we don't have, we can't pay anybody to do anything. So where are you going to start if you're gonna have a foundation?
The way you start any business, Brother Sharif, you start any business with a certain amount of capital because you're gonna have to buy.
Okay, first of all,
You're
where's the
gonna
capital coming from? Where's the capital
well,
coming
if,
from?
if I start the business, it comes out of my pocket.
Okay,
If
well,
I'm the
where,
business owner,
okay, if you're doing it, then why we are not doing that? If you got capital, why you not
whoa,
putting that
whoa,
capital
whoa,
into
whoa,
the
whoa, whoa.
community?
I,
And other
I,
thing, hold up, brother,
no, brother,
let me
you're
finish.
condemning me and not letting me answer a
I'm
question.
listening. I'm listening. Listen, I listen what you were saying.
You didn't listen to what I was saying.
Listen,
You didn't understand what I was
listen
saying.
here. Brother
You
Imam
didn't
W.D.
understand.
Muhammad, listen, W.D. Muhammad told us to start schools. Open a school, have your that Juma Talim service in the school. And we got people out here building masjids. Why are you building masjids and the school is going down? We're having the schools. That's what I'm saying. Where are we placing our priorities? Imam told us, don't build no masjids. Open the school and have your Juma and things in the masjid, in the school. We're not doing that.
Are you finished?
Yes, I'm finished. Yes.
Anytime you start a business, Muhammad Sharif, you started with X number of dollars of capital, whatever that is. And you start big or small. And by the way, Starbucks started very small. They now happen to be very big, but they started very small. McDonald's, you ever heard of a company called McDonald's? They
With
started,
big,
they start
they had big
McDonald's
money
start
behind them. They had big
no,
money behind them.
McDonald's started off selling fish sandwiches on a food cart. Fish sandwiches from a food cart. That's how McDonald's started. Starbucks started with one location in Seattle. Yes, they grew. This is what happens to some businesses. Not every business. Not even if you're good at it, are you necessarily going to be successful to that level. But yeah, they started small.
With
And
big
I'm not,
money behind them.
no, they didn't have any money behind them. When you're pushing a food cart up and down the street, that's big money behind you. That's how McDonald's started. They just had big dreams. Imam W.D. Muhammad, who was that was Adam, who was that was quoting the Imam the other day talking about imagination? We don't have imagination.
Right.
White boys have imagination. White folks have imagination. We don't have imagination. Dream a little bigger, but get started. Even if you start small, start. And all I'm saying is that we have the ability because we already have the real estate. We have the ability to start doing something small at almost every location we have around the country. And we should have enough people who are willing to volunteer their time to get it started. And we worry about paying people a livable wage when we have a business going that will support that. You have no idea how many families start family businesses that are now huge, where it was a family members working in the business and there were no paychecks,
Who are
zero.
you? Who are you going to get to work for nothing? You paying them
Me,
nothing.
me, right here in Dallas, Texas, with the
Okay,
time
get
that
it.
I have to donate 3 or 4 hours a week. I'm not asking anybody to work 40 hours. 3 or 4 hours a week, we ask you to go to the masjid and spend some time pouring cups of coffee and having conversations. What? Who could be hurt by that? Who's so proud and so stiff backed that they wouldn't donate 3 or 4 hours a week?
Well, who is doing it?
That's my point. We should all be doing it. We're not doing it. We're not doing it, and we should be. Now, I think some people are actually starting to do it. I have heard this. Imam DeLacy Umar was telling me about something going on there in Florida at the masjid that he's at, that they are actually starting to do something along these lines. Alhamdulillah. But we all, if we have the capability, if we actually have a building that will sustain it, and you can get just enough people, if you're talking 5 days a week, 20 hours divided amongst however many people, from 7 in the morning to 11 o'clock in the morning, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, 20 hours to do something along those lines, I think we have to investigate it at least. Because I don't think it's a time management problem. I don't think it's a human capital problem. I think we can find the people to do it. I really do. And yeah, it's nickels and dimes in the beginning that you're making. But I do believe those nickels and dimes can turn into something bigger. And we need all the help we can get. And I apologize for raising my voice, but I'm very passionate about this type of thing.
And it's worth it's definitely worth an investigation and see if somebody can put it to action.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have people who can put pen to paper and figure out how to make it work. I really do. Myself personally, I in the last, I would say 6 to 9 months, a couple of different times, I've talked to people that I know that are in the wholesaling business on a very, very large scale about what it would take to even try to replicate, bringing in, tons of fish and tons of coffee and different things like that. And yeah, I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. It's better, like in the case of Rabani and DeLacy, if you have someone who already has relationships in place to help you to be able to start with small orders. Because a lot of times, um, the wholesalers on the other end, they're they're pushing container loads of product. So you've got to have somebody who's willing to work with you on assisting you on starting at a smaller scale so that you can pay for the product up front and increase your orders as things get better. Those people are out there. um, I haven't personally identified any of them that were willing to give me too much time, but I do know that they exist. But I think something can be done in those areas. I don't think that what the Nation of Islam, the contracts, the people they were contracted with, whether it was government or quasi-governmental, I don't think that was a one-off. I think something like that can be arranged again. But I do think it would be helpful if you had more than one location trying to do it. I think if you had, 50 or 60 different locations that were involved in that same endeavor, that whoever that wholesaler is on the other end, or governmental body even, that they might see a longer profitable future and be willing to make some concessions. And you probably only need to do that for a short period of time if you have real idea of what you're doing. Um, you become a full-fledged customer probably within the first year to 15 months.
You bring it together, start up the first one, or there would you
You know
start
what
up the
my issue
first.
is? I'm not an imam.
No, I
So
didn't
when
say
I
you.
when
Hold
I
on, hold.
no, hold on,
I didn't call you an imam. I didn't call you an imam.
listen to what I have to say on that subject. Who who do you think I am that I can walk into any masjid in this country and tell them what to do? It has to come from the leadership of the masjid to decide that they want to do something, whether they want to work with me on it, you on it, Brother Adam on it, or anyone else. The leadership of the masjid has to make the decision that that is something that they want to do. I can't just go make them do it. And that's been the tough sell, is to get anybody that I've talked to move toward doing it. And
That's
I'm
all
here in
I'm.
Dallas.
That's
I'm
all
here in
I'm asking.
Dallas, and I've
That's
talked to
all I'm
them.
asking you to do is get it started. We're not talking about imam. I didn't call imam. I'm not
No, no,
imam.
no, no.
Just get it
I
started.
can't do it. Muhammad Sharif, how many times I have to tell you I can't do it by myself? I have to have the leadership of the masjid itself involved. I can't tell any imam what to do.
I'm not telling you, telling him, man, what to do. I'm saying if you don't know how to get it started, get it started. You don't need the imam to get it started.
How do I do that in their masjid?
Don't do it in that masjid. Go out outside, somewhere outside the masjid.
That you're missing the point. My point is to do this through the masjids for the benefit of the community. That's not my business. That's not what I do as a business. I'm not efficient at that. I'm efficient at what I do. It'd be like asking a doctor to go do electrical work.
Well, do what you can do outside the masjid
I
since it's
do
not
I do
happening
that.
in the
I
masjid.
do that. I do that already. Just like you do. You do your business outside the masjid as well.
Yes,
Imam Adam does his business outside the masjid. I'm not
right.
talking about that. I'm talking about us as a community doing something and doing it within the masjid for the benefit of the masjid and the benefit of the schools. I'm not
I
talking
guess
about
my
enriching. I'm not talking about enriching myself. I'm
I
talking
think
about
what I
enriching the masjid and hopefully having enough money to run schools.
start with the school. That's what the leaders told us. Start with the school, not the masjid. Start with the school.
Whatever we've got is what we've got. What I'm saying is use what we've got to develop and sustain both.
So my question now is, Imam Adam and Brother Rashid, why y'all were going mute on us now? You're not saying anything.
Now, I think brother Rashid had to go, but brother Adams said, if you've been listening, what brother Adams said is right on point.
Because I just got back to my office from this meeting, and I'm eating.
Very good, very good. Because I
I
need
had to
I
go.
need to
I had to
try.
go on mute.
I I need to replicate what you're doing right now because I have not had dinner, so I need to replicate that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Got to
but
get.
we have to talk about it more, brother Sharif. We have to
Right.
come to we have to come to one accord on
Mhm.
doing it. You can't haphazard do things. We're not talking about anybody being big chief here. We're talking about a community coming together and deciding to do something for the benefit of all. And mostly, in my mind, for the benefit of our youth. Because I've had a good run at it. I've had a good long run at it. There has to be something put in place for our youth that are coming behind us. In many
Right.
cases, grandchildren that are coming behind us. We need to leave something solid for them. So no, this isn't about any person like me. Look at me. This is about the community.
And we're just sharing ideas,
That's it.
and no one has an answer because we haven't done it yet.
Right.
And,
Haven't done it
and
yet.
no one has the ability to say, well, mine works and yours doesn't, because nobody's done anything at all. So that's basically what we're doing right now. And the proof is trying to get it to work, whatever we do.
Exactly. Right.
How do we try to do something? How do we convince people that something should be done? That's the question that we have to try to answer. So inshallah, we'll figure this thing out one way or another. We'll talk about it. Because eventually, something has to work, right? Eventually.
It has to. Yeah, eventually, something has to be in place that is going to be that's going to universally move us forward.
Right.
So from coast to coast, from as far north as we have masjids, as far south, east, and west, that everybody in our community can have a good, strong feeling about the direction of the community.
Right. And we can see ourselves as a community. That's the struggle.
Yeah, that is a struggle. That is a struggle. But it's doable. I think people want it, and I think it's doable.
Did you hear what Imam Muhammad said in his last public address 2 days before he transitioned?
What did he say?
What's that?
It was titled Shared Freedom Space. Imam said, if there are 3,000 or 4,000 people, and if there are 3 or 4 of you, then Allah has chosen you to lead the many. Get the lecture titled Shared Freedom Space and listen to just what I'm saying. That's what the Imam told us to do. Get the lecture, Shared Freedom Space. You can get it from W. Muhammad Publications, or it may be online. Just get it. His last public address and what he said. If there are 3,000 or 4,000 people, and there are only 3 or 4 of you, then Allah has chosen you to lead the many.
Okay. I will definitely look for that. Yep, I will definitely look for that. Well, we have reached 8 o'clock. Imam Adam, will you close us out if your mouth isn't
Yes,
full?
sir. It's good. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار آمين.
Ameen.
I mean,
All right, brother.
Thank everybody
So,
for their
Muhammad,
contributions tonight.
most definitely. And Muhammad, I'll see you on Thursday, brother.
right. And Brother Willis, why don't you join us Thursday?
Oh, I usually
He
do.
does. He does.
I'm usually just listening. I'm usually just listening because
Well,
Muhammad.
yeah.
I run my mouth too much, right? I say too much most of the time. So sometimes I just like to sit back and listen and learn.
Yeah, he does. He was on last week, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Sir.
All right, brothers.
brothers.
Sister Manira,
Well,
everybody have a wonderful
oh,
evening.
I can't see online. She got sisters on. They still hanging in there.
Well, she did. I think Sister Kalita had to go, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, Manira still hung in there with us, and I don't know what
Alhamdulillah.
she thinks of us. I don't know what she thinks of us at this point, but she hung in to the
Ask her
bitter
if she's
end.
gonna come back on next week.
Oh yes, thumbs up or thumbs down, Sister Manira. We may have put her to sleep. Who knows?
Wow.
Tell me about it.
All
Tell me
right.
about it, brother. All right.
Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
Walaikum
salam.
assalam.